Hello and welcome. In today's video, we are going to be transforming a piece of wood like this into an old-fashioned pepper mill. This is a fantastic, fun project to do on the lathe. Please sit back and enjoy. I'm going to be narrating through this whole entire video, and if you have any questions along the way, please let me know. Let's begin. So here I'm using a bowl blank to get started. The nice thing about the pepper mills is that you could use relatively small pieces of wood. You don't really need large ones. I think 3 to 4 inches is a good size. 3 will definitely keep you safe. Using a Timberwolf blade, I really like these bandsaw blades. I've always bought from them. The company, I'm not affiliated with them at all. I just really like their blades. They have tons of product, and their team will help you pick out a blade that you need for your projects. My all-around go-to blade is a 1/2 inch 3 TPI. It's a great all-around blade for roughing in thicker blanks and still being able to make some tight radiuses. And of course, the most important thing here is safety. So you can see that I'm using my little push stick when I'm getting into close little pieces like that. Getting them around like this does save quite a bit of time on the lathe. So I would say that the bandsaw is the most useful tool you could have when you're doing lathe work. Now you could see here I am getting ready to pre-drill these, and this is for my chucking method, or I say my mounting method. You can see I used a mini step jaw. It's not that exact one, but I just threw a picture up there for you guys to see. This allows me, when I'm turning, that I don't have to put the tailstock up against the piece, so I could flatten out the other end. You can see when I go to mount this how quick and easy it is to set. So I've been using this method for quite a while. It'll even work for small bowls and things like that. It's just extremely convenient. Okay, so now we get to the fun part here. I'm going to be roughing in the pepper mill blank. So I'm just facing that end off. That's when I put the tailstock up against it. There's no weird warble or anything like that. And I'm using, I think it's a 1/2 inch bowl gouge here, which is probably the most versatile tool, I think, when you're turning. I love bowl gouges and skew chisels, and every tool has its purpose, but the bowl gouge, if you're new to turning, it's going to be an incredibly useful tool. And then you can see this piece has a warble, and if you look up in the right hand corner of the screen, you can see I have a top angle camera going at the same time. Go. Quick tip for a tenon. Let me pause here for a second. Okay, so I got the video paused here. Now, one thing about turning, when you go to size for your tenon, most of the time we use calipers, and calipers are extremely useful. But it just so happens that the mid-size to small size chuck that grabs onto the piece of wood, it's a perfect size if you just run your pencil off the tailstock. Now, depending on what lathe you have and what chuck you have, you'll have to see where yours falls. You could always add a little piece of wood or a popsicle stick to the pencil to make it thicker. But basically, this method allows for no guesswork. As soon as I touch that pencil to that wood, it shows me exactly the right size to make it to reverse chuck this. Really, really great time saving tip. So try it out on your lathe if you got one. Alright, so now I'm going to be grabbing the parting tool. This allows for a straight cut in. You can see that right there. And there's my tenon line. I'm going to make that a little bit thicker. That allows my chuck to grab onto this piece of wood from the other end, and you'll see why as we make this. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm testing the wood for this tear out. I'm taking a carbide tool, I'm running at full speed, and I want you to notice the dust that is appearing on my hand. When you cut the right way at the right speed, it's almost as if you're sanding the piece of wood. You get an ultra smooth finish. So I'm just looking to see how bad is this tear out going to be with a super smooth cut like that. I could feel it there with my fingers, and it's pretty bad. This is just from what's called punk wood. So it was, disintegrated wood on the inside, and it's just there. That shear cut, if that did not clear that, nothing is going to clear that. You're going to have to work it a different way, which is something I end up doing. So here we go. I'm going to try to show you up close. You could see it's almost as if there's holes in the wood. Now, if I turn this a little bit, you could see right on the edge there where I turned it, how smooth that wood was from the cut. But yeah, that's that punk wood. That's got to be filled and worked. And I decided for this video that I was going to do that. A lot of times when I have wood like that, I'll just chuck it or get rid of it, just because of the amount of work that goes involved with that. So now we're on the next step. Here I am drilling the width to set the pepper mill base into the top of the wood, and you'll see what's going on here in a second. So this drill bit gives me almost a perfect size to countersink these pepper mills into the piece. You'll see exactly what's going on here. I want to say it's maybe a 32nd of an inch too small, so it gives me some room to get a tool in there or do a little sanding in there, which is perfect, and then the piece sits in there nice and tight. You'll see when I set the foot of the pepper mill what's going on there. Here I am, nice and easy, just letting the drill bit do the work. Probably spinning about 700, 800 RPM. Pretty fast, but not crazy fast. Think about how fast a drill press spins. That's probably like on the slower side of speed there. And that gives me a nice pocket there. And I think I'm going to switch camera views here in a second. Let's see. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to drill the pepper chamber. This bit is going to be the hole where when you grind the pepper, it's the hole that the pepper falls down through and comes out onto your food. And, same process here. I'm going to spin maybe 700, 800. Not really sure. Just kind of get the speed going. You can see I'm pushing on the tailstock. Sometimes I do this if the wood is cut nice. If it's a real dense maple or hard cherry, I might lock the tailstock, which you'll see, and then I will crank the wheel. That is definitely a nice way to do it. It's very satisfying doing this as well. I take this and I drill straight through right out the other side, and there's still enough wood left up for that chuck to hold on to it so that I could finish turning the mill. So here you can see I'm going to start the sanding process for the inside of the hole. I don't take as much time sanding this, but I do make it feel nice. It's kind of funny because when people pick these up, they always stick their finger inside this hole and feel around for whatever reason. It's just something that everybody does. And, you want it to feel good in there. You want to get out any rough nicks or stuff like that from the drill bit. Doesn't really leave a perfectly smooth finish. Now you can see I just tested that pepper mill and it's a little tight, so I'm going to fix that. Bring my tailstock over, and hopefully if you guys are enjoying this, let me know what you think. Of course, I know I've been doing music on my channel, but this is one of my favorite things to do. I'm getting a little hollowing tool to hook around. I guess I didn't feel like taking the tailstock off, getting a different tool in there, so that one I could kind of hook around and widen it. And then we got I'm grabbing the pepper mill, and there we go. It's seating nice and snug. So now when I do a little bit of sanding, it'll be perfect. So now all that's left is I got to shape this thing and finish it. And this is where, I guess the fun really starts to begin. I'm going to bring in my tailstock because I want a little bit of support because I'm going to get the speed cranking on this thing. Remember, there's only a little bit of wood holding on with that chuck because I drilled through it. So there's maybe like a 1/4 inch or, maybe a 1/2 inch piece left. But I want that support because I don't want this thing flying off during this process because I'm going to be cranking the speed up to shape this out. When I do these, I don't really ever have a plan. I just kind of go with it and just kind of wing it. That's why when you look at my pepper mills, every one is different. So this is in real time. You can see I'm taking a little tiny
carbide tool there. Sometimes these small cheap tools are just so great. I have so many wood turning tools, and sometimes I go to the small cheap ones. They're just fantastic. You can see I'm just taking my time here, rounding off that top section. That'll be the top of the pepper mill. So that's the way that we're looking at it. And I'm rounding off the bottom a little. You can see how much nicer that finish is getting versus the rough finishing. And then I'm grabbing the skew chisel. I'm just going to put a nice edge. I'm just gonna I'm straight. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm straightening it out, and I'm also putting a nice smooth finish on there. You can see the dust coming off. With the right touch, it's almost like you're sanding. It's called shear scraping. I believe that would be the correct term. The most important thing is that you take your time and you just enjoy the process. If you feel like you're in a rush, then you're not doing this right. If you feel like you're in a rush trying to do this, and injuries happen, so you just want to take your time and enjoy this process. It's just a ton of fun. And I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I think I'm checking the wood for this tear out, because I know this tear out is going to be a pain to fix, but we're going to fix it in this video, and I'm going to show you how to deal with it. What I'm trying to do is get the smoothest finish as possible right off the bat. And you can see as I do this is now going to start taking form. And what we'll do now is maybe we'll just speed up the video a little bit. I mentioned before that I freestyle these, and I never really know what I'm going to do. And you'll see that as I'm doing this, all of a sudden it just starts to come to life. You could see that, a couple seconds ago I didn't know what to do, and then I just start to shape, and it just starts to come to life. Now with that tear out, I'm going to use this beading tool to make an imperfect surface. You don't want to try to hide tear out in a perfectly smooth section unless you're going to fill it, which we're going to do. You'd have to fill it and make it perfect, but these little beads will be real nice because it'll just blend in with some of that tear out in that little section there. Did a little sanding. Now I'm going to take my picture wire and I'm going to burn lines in there. You can see that smoke coming right off. That gives a really nice accent into those beads. You can see it really makes it pop, especially once we put that finish on. It's just going to have a really cool look there. Now onto one of my favorite tools, this sanding disc. Oh my God, do I love these. I could probably make a whole video just on these, but they allow to just get in there on odd shapes and just give a really, really nice finish. They work so well. I don't really see people using these too often in other videos, but I think I'm going to make a whole video just on sanding. I mean, there I am I'm also cleaning up my, chuck and everything there with it. But these you could push in there and get in all those little grooves, and they come in different grits, and they just really, really help the whole process. And they're inexpensive too. Make sure that when you use them, you don't use them on wood that's finished with something like, lacquer or polyurethane, because it could gum it up. So just always make sure you use those on dry wood. And then I'm taking a special shear tool that I shaped myself just to smooth out. I think here I'm trying to really work on that tear out. You could see super fine dust coming off. So that the angle that you touch it at and the speed that you run at and the tool that you use make a huge difference. I have seen some people argue online about whether or not starting sanding at 120. That's kind of ridiculous. I think if you get proper tool control, realistically you could be you're standing at 300, 240, probably 240 max, but I'd like to start 300 if I can. That's just good tool control that you have to learn how to do, but it's just like a cabinet scraper. So, if you think about a cabinet scraper, that's almost like sanding, and that's what you're doing with these tools. Now, there are times I will go in and sand with, a 180 on a wheel or something like that. It's not all the time, but getting that finish as smooth as you can with the tool is key. And here I'm just burnishing the wood with some steel wool. This also picks up the dust off the wood, which is great. So when you're getting ready to apply your finish, that'll help you pick up the dust, and it just burnish the wood real nice. You could also burn with steel wool, which you're going to see me do here. Watch the top of that as we go. Oh, look at that smoke coming off. That is great. You just got to be careful, obviously, that you don't burn yourself. So you wrap up that steel wool and make sure it's not too close. But you hold it in there, and you can color the wood with the heat and make these lines blend. You can see how I just popped that line in with the steel wool. So awesome. There's so many tricks and ways to do things when you're wood turning, and that's one of the reasons why I want to make these videos and just share this with you guys, especially with everything that's going on with me and my back issues right now. So it's great knowledge, and it takes years to learn all this stuff, and there's so much great content on YouTube, people just sharing stuff, and that's what we're doing here. Just want to make this pepper mill and show you guys what it's all about. And there we go. I'm seating it and checking it, and it's starting to come to life. You really start to see what it's going to look like here. The next part we're going to get to is doing the finish, and lots of different options for finishing these. So here I'm going to use shellac spray, and I'm using this as a sanding sealer. I typically hate sanding sealer, but for this instance, I need to stiffen up that grain and be able to sand it back. Now, typically I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time because you will gum up your sandpaper with that. Now I'm just popping it off here, gonna let that dry, and then we'll get back to it. And here's just a few of the other pepper mill bodies that I made. So, of course, I'm going to get to this other clip here. I lost the footage for how I finished this, which was probably the most important footage of the video. I use a product called Rub and Buff. You can see it on the rim there. What I end up doing is cutting it back and putting it into only the punky spots to fill them. It's a really, really fantastic product. And then I use my own friction polish that, I think I'll make a whole video on just using friction polishes and maybe that Rub and Buff, but you can see it came out beautiful. Just a really nice shine. The finished product, though, the gold on the rim is not as prominent. It's kind of cut back a little bit. So here I am re-chucking the piece back onto the other lathe, and you can see how handy the pin nose jaw comes in, because that 1-inch hole, now I could just automatically re-chuck it without any type of issue. This will allow me to take off the tenon that was originally on there and get a nice flat bottom in there. I typically use a Japanese pull saw to take off the tenons. It's just, it really only takes a minute to do, and it's a pretty safe way versus trying to turn it off. Sometimes with bowls, I'll turn those off, but this is easy for the pepper mill. Here's a great example of where I'll use a 120 sanding. Like I said, I rarely try to use it, but on the base, when you cut that off with the pull saw, that's an appropriate way to start with the 120. And then here I am just hand sanding the inside. I'm going up through the grits. I keep my sandpaper on a little chain thing. And then for the inside, I'll use a oscillating sander and just try to smooth out the inside. Even right now, the finished piece has a little bit of roughness on the inside. That's just because of that punky wood section, but it won't interfere with using it or anything like that. It has, the pepper is going to come right out. All right, so I'm gonna get this mounted now. Take out the PSI part. So we can see here, let's see. Pepper mill, this comes on backwards. We just take this off. That'll get flipped around. This style here controls the coarseness of the grit, okay? So next thing we want to try to do is align where we want the front of the mechanism to go on the wood. So I try to look for what is appealing to me as the best spot. So let me just take a quick look at this. So I think what I'll do is I'll line it up with that, because anytime somebody picks it up, you're going to slightly move it, you're going to see that little glow of the wood. So we'll preset the piece in there where we want. That's how it looks there. Make sure we got it just right. And then I've got to mark the hole. So I'm going to get a little awl. Here we go. Now this should come with screws. I'm gonna go with this because I haven't done these in a long time, so Yeah, I'm gonna go one size down. Now with the other ones, the ones out of the hardwood, I usually use Danish oil and buff them, but that'll be a different mill there. And then I think I like these short ones too. I make a lot of them bigger. Some people like the short ones. That feels nice and tight. Screws are in there good. All right, let's real quick before I go do the finishing pictures on that one. I just want to show you guys some of the other ones I've worked on over the past couple months. So you might have saw these in the room before, but I'll make another video on how to make these from start to finish. You could see they're almost at the end stage. This is the Danish oil and beeswax. It's not even buffed yet, but when it is, it just has a beautiful, beautiful shine to it. And it feels really nice in the hands. And I pretty much freestyle turn these. This one might look like a little cup or something. Some of them, here's a little, this had like applewood and walnut and cherry. And I used a special tool to make those little cuts in it. I forget what it's called. It's not a detail tool. Here's another one. These are going to be awesome. But what I'll do is I'll make a new video on, I'll do one of these from start to finish. I think I'd like to do the projects that way. But this is something exciting to look at. All right. And here we are at the last step. I got a little bit of lighting there and camera. And that's how I took the pictures that you see popped up in the beginning and over here. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I will be making a few more of these. Take care.